Hi everyone, a quick overview on public relations. And really, if you're a small organization, public relations is an extremely effective use of your money. It's probably if done and managed properly, it's probably the most effective way to get a return on investment from a promotional perspective in PR. And PR actually has a number of functions. It's not just about trying to craft an image and maintain that. It's certainly about educating not just potential customers, but knowing the public on what's going on, introducing new products, supporting the sales environment, and trying to generate favorable publicity. Often, sometimes there is crisis management, but hopefully you try to avoid those. So that's a kind of a quick overview. And I think it's important to really look at communication and what it's all about. It's the fundamentals of promoting and getting messaging out. And it's worth spending just a couple minutes looking at the mechanism of what communication is. Here's as good a definition as any. Exchanging or sharing meanings through a common set of symbols. And there's two different types of communication. There's interpersonal, and then there's mass communication. Mass communication being most commonly what we know as traditional advertising, whether it's through TV, radio, newspapers, magazines. It tends to be broadcast. It's one way. Interpersonal tends to be more on the sales promotion side or sales selling, where you've got individual one-on-one communication of information. And they're very, very different as such. So let's look at the science behind communication process and looking at the actual channel. So you have a sender and you have a receiver. So the senders tend to be the advertisers, and they use a channel, whether that be television, radio, could be the internet, magazines, billboards, all kinds of different ways. And there's got to be a way to encode that message, whatever it is, and there's different mechanisms to do that. And then you're obviously decoding it. And there's this thing called noise, and noise takes on many, many forms. And if you think about traditional communication in marketing, the noise that's most common is, and most of a concern, is your competitor trying to access that same customer and doing many, many similar things. In addition, you have the issue of just sort of life in general and other things that are taking their attention away from your effort to communicate to your end user and your customer. So that's happening quite a bit as well. You've got just all kinds of other things that might be going on at the same time that would distract the receiver from getting that. So what you want to try to do is make sure your signal is much higher than the noise level that's out there. It's very, very important. And when the signal and noise start to get similar to each other, it gets harder to get that message through the channel. And then when it gets much larger, there's no way your receiver will actually ever get that message you're trying to encode as the sender. The primary feedback channel is, sometimes taking action and getting things done. A purchase, if you will, would be a direct mechanism. Perhaps it's an inquiry. It could be 100 different reasons why, or different mechanisms for feedback channel. But understanding this communication process and trying to keep your signal that's going from sender to receiver above the noise level is essential to communication. So looking at the key elements of what's out there for promoting, you've got public relations, which again is a very, very effective tool. It tends to be usually indirect and impersonal. You don't get a lot of feedback directly. Does again tend to be one way, but it's usually pretty quick at getting a larger. If you get a press release out there, and get somebody to sort of kind of pay attention, kind of an important thing. Things that affect the promotional mix, you got to really look at where you are what's the nature of the product? Is it something that's complex? Is it simple? Is it difficult to sort of learn and understand what the product is? Do you need a sort of an owner's manual? Is it going to take a while for you to learn it, or is it something that's intuitive and you get right away? Where is it in the product life cycle? Is it in the introductory element and stage of it? Is it on the mature, the declining stage? That a lot of that has to do with what kind of advertising works best, whether it's mass marketing, whether it's public relations, whether it's sales promotion, whether it's personal selling. All those things have an impact on what's going on. Is it a buying decision that's complicated? You're buying a home. Are you buying a car? Are you buying a bottle of water? Promotional funds. How much money is there out there available for you to use? Do you have a lot? Do you have a little? And then is it a push or pull strategy that's going on? Are you pushing it directly to customers, or are you using a channel or an intermediary or the trades to kind of move it forward? All these things have an impact on which elements of the promotional mix makes the most sense. Again, here when you have you're on the introductory part, it's light advertising. Better to do sort of pre-introduction and publicity. And then when you start moving forward, you start seeing more heavy use of advertising, because it's really about creating awareness and getting people going. That's kind of important. And then, when you start getting here, advertising gets less effective because people sort of know about it. It's really sales promotion tends to work the best, and as does personal selling. It's trying to get people engaged to keep that volume up. Pretty important. So really, when you're looking at promotion, it depends on whether you're on the beginning part of the product life cycle or the back part. So initially, what you're trying to do is inform people. Then once they become customers, you need to go ahead and remind them of what's going on. And then in the bridge there, when you're trying to make it from one end to the other across the product life cycle, it's about persuading them. So first, inform them, then persuade, then remind once they're regular customers, and remind them that they need to buy more. So when you're looking at who the audience is for public relations, is it perhaps internal? And many times PR does that. Are you talking to the employees, the stockholders, suppliers, and customers? And then if you're looking externally, clearly the media is a big target that you have. Could be people who are involved in government organizations, financing this, all these kinds of different people that you're targeting for information out there. So you got to really look at, is it an internal customer or an external customer? You got to really think about that in positioning for your product as well. So when you look at a public relations program, what are your tools in your tool belt? Press releases, right? Releasing these to get information out there. You can have press conferences if there's an issue that needs to sort of be addressed. Do you give editors or people exclusives, right, as opposed to letting everyone see it? Making sure you're involving the local community and being part of it. The internet, clearly, granting interviews. All these things are tools that are available to the current public relations executive. What do? PR definitely helps to provide credibility, kind of validates what you're trying to do. You can do image building. You have to be specific about who you target and what you do. There could be lead generation that comes from it. You issue a press release, people get check it out. Could lead to some potential customers coming in. Also, it helps to stay focused, and then ultimately it might save you some money because it is a very cost-effective way to move forward, as opposed to compare it to the cost of advertising or traditional TV, radio spots, that type of thing. Potential problems. Well, you know what? You have to be careful. It's going to be a strategy and a plan, just like you have a marketing and a business plan. You got to be careful here too. Maybe the people that you're targeting, the receiver there's not a connection there. A lot of times there needs to be a good relationship between the PR individual and the targeted editor, if you will. Is it something that's part of an integrated campaign? Does that work? And are you doing it too often, getting out there? You got to sort of think about that a little bit as well. So that's something to keep in mind. You look at a company like General Mills, for instance, in the cereal business, and the whole thing about trying to position actually cereals as being healthy, and it was talking about grains and the importance of that. All these kinds of things where you know, you've got a sort of a trend going on in the market. Companies jump in, try to take advantage of it, right? That's a good example of that. Like any element of marketing and promotion, you got to look at how you gauge and measure its effectiveness. Where did the business come from? Can you tie it to a PR effort? How was it achieved? How do you measure it? All these things, keeping track of, a particular press release going out there and generating X amount of inquiries and leads. How do you confirm it and tie it back into then? Very, very important. So you can look at, specific campaigns, try to have a URL that's tied to that. Total number of impressions over time, who their target audience is. It's just like you do it with any other marketing element. You need to do it with public relations as well. And there's a difference between publicity and PR. Publicity is looking at just getting information out there, generating information about a person, product, a service that's in a company, something's in the media that may or may not really be what you're looking at. It's just sort of creating kind of a big awareness. It tends to be a short-term strategy. It's really a subset. It's just about getting the name out there, but it's not tied to a specific objective or deliverable, which is what PR should be doing. So if you look at the pros and cons of that, you do get information out there. You get some word of mouth, some buzz. The disadvantages, it's hard to necessarily control publicity. A lot of it tends to be, at least on the web, tends to be viral. It may or may not work, and it may not, contribute back too much to what's going on. So that's a quick overview of the element of PR. And any questions, feel free to give me a shout. Otherwise, look forward to the last 3 weeks of our class coming up, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks.